Join us! Join us!
You boob.
David, I'm leaving that in the intro. How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to episode 6? Episode 6 of the Shadow Cult podcast. And as always, it's myself, Scott, and Walt. Tonight, it is the second of 4 shows we're doing for the month of June. And this time we're going south. We're going to WCW, and we're doing Great American Bash 1989, the oldest show we've reviewed so far on this podcast. So, before we get into all the statistics and stuff, I figured a good place to begin is for Walt and Scott to give us a little bit of insight as to where WCW and the wrestling business as a whole at 1989.
Well, this is the transition period between the NWA and WCW. We are past the Dusty Rhodes era. He is gone from the company at this point, working for Vince McMahon, the WWF. We are in the Jim Herd Enough era. This being July, we are right before Ric Flair takes over the book for WCW, NWA, for Jim Crockett Promotions, whatever you want to call it, at that point. Prior to this, it was the George Scott era, which George, pretty much was dealing with early stages of Alzheimer's because he had no clue what was going on in the world of pro wrestling at that time. He thought it was 1979, 1989, so he reverted to what he knew in 79, which was Flair Steamboat. Granted, we got the incredible series of matches with Flair and Steamboat earlier the year. But this
a lot of good things, and actually, 1989 was one of the best years WCW ever had. Honestly,
once we got to this point and things started turning around, and Flair took over, we saw the development of the JTEX Corporation. We saw, Pillman try and get elevated, and just a lot of good stuff there. So, and
we'll deep tag team division.
Yep, deep tag team division that we're close to. It will be a few months before the New York Knockout Clash of Champions, which was virtually all tag matches. Minus a couple of singles matches. And we're seeing like a transition in talent here because you've got some of the old guard from the NWA Jim Crockett era and a lot of new faces that are starting to try to make waves and so forth. And Flair would ultimately be the one in charge of them after this show. He would send a letter to Jim Herd and the organization saying, pretty much, give me the book or I'm leaving. And they did. They gave him the book.
So, and needless to say, and also as far as all of pro wrestling, the WCW and WWF was still going strong. We're not there at the wrestling recession yet. That's a couple of years off, but still the business was still doing fairly well mainstream-wise. WCW maybe not as mainstream as WWF, of course, but pro wrestling as a whole still looked at as being something truly amazing.
And this show is in Baltimore, which is like the most successful, quote-unquote, Northern Territory city that the NWA WCW was having at that time. They would have several shows they would try to do in the Northeast. This isn't too far away from when I got to see an NWA house show in Troy, New York, the one prior to the Clash of Champions, New York Knockout. So they were trying to hit the northern area, trying to encroach upon Vince's territory, and wasn't always successful. Very rarely was it successful. But Gary Juster is prominent on this show because he's the promoter for this town, which was also the home of the Jim Crockett Sr. Memorial Cup Tag Tournament, which was the most successful territory they had outside of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Atlanta, and so forth. So,
I think the Bash '88 was at Baltimore Arena.
Yep.
They had the Bash was Baltimore Arena for like 4 or 5 straight years.
Yeah. Because like I said, Gary Juster would go on. I don't know if he still is, but he would be working with the Ring of Honor just the past few years. I don't know if he's still involved with them, but when Jim Cornette talked about leaving Ring of Honor, he made sure to drop Gary's name quite a few times and basically gave him a big so.
Alrighty, so with all that out of the way, let's get to the statistics about Great American Bash 1989. So, Great American Bash 1989 was at the Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. Attendance 12,500, a sellout, all of which paid. Live gate $188,000. Pay-per-view buys $180,000. Compared to Bash 88, the attendance was lower by only 500. Livegate was lower by $20,000, and pay-per-view buys was lower by 10,000. So still almost on par with 88. Now compared to the rest of the pay-per-views WCW had in 1989, Great American Bash was the highest attended pay-per-view. It was also the highest Livegate. However, pay-per-view buys was the second highest. Halloween Havoc was first. And just for completionist's sake, the lowest attended show of 89 was Wrestle War. The lowest live gate was Wrestle War. And the lowest pay-per-view buys, Wrestle War and Starrcade tied for the lowest. But then again, only 5 pay-per-views in 89, so it's not really all that bad. So, with all that out of the way, time to talk about the show itself and the.
Well, I've got my stats to go over as well.
Oh, of course.
Yep. So I'll just fire those off real quick here. This is the Joe Bob Briggs treatment that I give the pay-per-views nowadays we review. So here we go. We have at the Great American Bash 1999, thanks to the WWE Network, a lot of overdubbed intros and music. We have frisbee tossing. Multiple toy crowns, green mist, 4 manager promos, 3 pile drivers, 2 rings, 2 dudes, 2 power bombs, 2 powder gimmicks, 2 wrong leg calls. We'll talk about more of that later. 2 future ECW bookers, 2 bloody messes, 1 future goon, 1 future loose cannon, 1 peanut head, 1 star of the Wonder Years, 1 future Bella Twin dad, 1 future Dean, 1 super over future Psycho, 1 future Cape Fear ripoff, 1 Psycho Yuppie, 1 Louisville Slugger, 1 running Jew, 1 dog for a manager. Now, I wanted to make a Missy Hyatt joke there, but she was way hot at this point, so I just couldn't.
Oh, yeah. You can't knock on her on that this time.
Yeah.
We have 1 Daddy Wyatt, 1 future Big Bag Booty Daddy, 1 Dog Pound, 1 Ref Bump, 1 Moonsault, 1 Dusty Finish, 1 Bullshit Chant, 1 Little Dragon, 1 Floating Dragon, 1 Komodo Dragon, 1 Total Package, 1 Failed Platform Rotation, 1 Branding Iron, 1 Playboy, 1 Spinning Toe Hold, 1 hell of a post-match fight, and 1 Jackass.
There you go.
We also have Royal Scraping Foo, Flying Foo, Tag Team Foo, Manager Foo, Tornado Foo, Face Paint Foo, Steel Chair Foo, and Old School Foo. Oh yes, and Match Beyond Foo.
And lastly, 1 We Want Sid chant.
Yes.
And we'll get into that in just a bit, but
Yeah.
so now as far as like commentators, your commentators were Bob Caudle and a young Jim Ross before Bell's palsy. So I can't help but feel it's a little weird seeing Jim Ross do commentary without the Bell's palsy because like from the time I got into watching, because it's all I know from when I got into wrestling in '98. That was so it just feels
that
weird.
That young Jim Ross voice, man.
Yeah.
It is just so apropos of that time. Just that
The Stinger has got to dig down deep. He's got to fight for all his life. He's going to fight for all his guts. And he's fighting back now. Oh, my heart! What intensity!
And Bob Caudle, he just has one tone, never goes higher or low. Like, I can't believe a match where
Jim, this is quite a night. Oh, I think it's a great idea.
So with that being said, now time to talk about the show at hand. So we got 9 matches total, so pretty decent sized card. Starting things off with the 2-ring King of the Hill Battle Royal. Following participants: Terry Gordy, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Scott Steiner, Scott Hall, Ron Simmons, Rick Steiner, Ranger Ross, Mike Rotunda, Stan Spivey, Sid Vicious, Bill Irwin, Brian Pillman, Eddie Gilbert, and Kevin Sullivan.
Now, apparently all these guys won Battle Royals to make it to this.
Yeah, it was all around the summertime. They were doing the house show circuit, and they would have several cities would have the 2-ring Triple Crown King of the Hill Battle Royal. I remember them.
How does Bill Irwin win a Battle Royal? How does Ranger Ross win a Battle Royal?
Same way Pat Patterson wins the Intercontinental title in Buenos Aires.
Right.
You know. So, yeah. What's with the crowns? Really? What's with the fucking crowns?
Yeah, I was like,
so
why
lame.
is everybody coming out to the ring with a crown on? It was like,
No. Really lame.
They're cashing in their crowns.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Rick Steiner gave his crown to a fan.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yep, that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
So this match, like the concept of it, where you first eliminate someone out of the first ring into the second ring, and whoever survives the battle royals in each of the respective rings would have a one-on-one match, and the winner would be the Triple Crown winner. Well, we get through the match, and Sid Vicious completed the first ring, last eliminating Brian Pillman, and then Stan Spivey wins in the second ring, and it's funny, both of these guys tag partners at this time, the Skyscrapers, and it looked like we were going to get Spivey versus Sid when out comes...
But then here comes the Mac Militant.
Head on, baby. With hair and his missing front teeth.
And basically saying, there ain't going to be no one-on-one match. We'll split the $50,000. Both of these guys win the match.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, Hank Hill was so pissed off.
Not sure what that's supposed to be a reference to.
King of the
yeah. Wow, I am an idiot. I deserve a smack into the face.
If you didn't get that, subscribe.
So, overall, for this kind of a concept of a match, good concept, mediocre execution, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? This is the predecessor to the World War III Battle Royal, for God's sake.
Yeah.
That we would be subjected to, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the
I think
end...
Walter is frozen.
But in the end, Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious win the 2-ring King of the Hill Triple Crown Battle Royal in 10 minutes, 20 seconds. Next up, immediately following that match, we get, I believe we get a promo with Paul Heyman, or Paulie Dangerously, I should say. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Because later... Oh, there went Walt.
Yeah, we did.
First instance of technical difficulties on this show. Good Lord, I am cursed. We're keeping that in because it's funny.
Yeah, we're staying. Yeah. There's no editing here, folks. We keep everything in here. This is all straight shooting. Bang, bang.
Exactly. So, because I bring a promo up because later in the night we get a special match. We'll talk more about that when we get to it. Mm-hmm. Following the Battle Royal is a one-on-one match. Wild Bill Irwin versus Flying Brian Pillman. Initially watching this match, it was interesting to hear them talk about Pillman's football career prior to getting into the business, which I believe Pillman still holds a couple of Miami, Ohio records to this day. If not, I gotta look it up. But this match, I first saw Bill Irwin on Super Brawl 3 when we talked about that show, and he was from what you guys told me, he was a good hand in the ring to put people over, and this would probably be another perfect example of that, just there to put the young guy over in what was a decent, good match, nothing spectacular, just basically You have 10 minutes, get your shit in. Bill, make Brian look good, and we'll give you some money afterwards.
Yeah. And Irwin was great at getting heat. He was a Minnesota guy, so he kind of started in that area, and the Wild Bill gimmick came about. He had a lot of success in World Class, held like the Texas title, I think, the Americans title, stuff like that in the early days of World Class. And I think he had just finished up World Class, and he was heading to work for the NWA at this point. So, and just kind of had a little quick run there as just a mechanic to help get guys over, like you were saying.
Yep. So in the end, Brian Pillman beat Bill Irwin in 10 minutes, 18 seconds. I believe following that would be another promo segment. And I forgot to mention interviewer was Gordon Soley, rest in peace. Mm-hmm. And I believe he goes to interview good old Jim Cornette because of what's about to happen later on. But following the Irwin-Pillman match, we get a tag team match. The Skyscrapers, Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious versus, oh god, the Dynamic Dudes. Shane Douglas and fucking Johnny Ace.
Hey, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a good match. Good tag team.
Oh, God, I cringe every time I think about Johnny Ace.
See, unfortunately, again, your generation's kind of been spoiled by what WWE did to John. For his time, he was not the best worker in the ring in an American ring. But when it came to being in Japan, Johnny Ace was a big star, especially for All Japan Pro Wrestling. And, he's credited with pretty much developing the Ace Crusher, which would become the Diamond Cutter, would become the RKO, would become the Stunner, all various different reasonable facsimiles thereof. But he could hang with the best. And actually, we are right around the anniversary of the passing of Misawa from All Japan and from Noah. And Johnny Ace had some great matches with him. Johnny Ace was a formidable tag team with Dr. Destiny Williams. It just became that his wrestling career was over. He came to WCW, became office guy, and started doing stuff there. And he brought him up to WWE. There was the CM Punk, people power era. And that's kind of just ruined Johnny for everybody. Yep. And get that response. So, I mean, I'm not saying Johnny was a great worker overall. He had his thing in Japan. Some guys can get over in Japan. They can't do it in America. Kenny Omega. But, it just works out that way for some people.
But we get this tag match, and
Walter will be back, by the way. His internet went down, so he will be back.
All right, so that's good. For me, watching this match, this match was kind of a struggle for me to get through, because I don't know why these guys just didn't really click, and not to mention there were quite a few botched spots in this match. The only real notable thing that I really have to say about this match is 3 words: we want Sid.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
Enough said.
Sid's the most over guy in this match, and
every time they get him into the ring, he tags out to Spivey to get heat on Spivey, which was really, I thought was kind of funny. But every time when he tag out, standing on the apron, with crowd going, "We want Sid."
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to mention in the Dynamic Dudes entrance, they bring out a kid from the crowd to toss the frisbees with and pose and then put them back.
Welcome back, Walter.
Thank you. And that kid looks like he'd rather be somewhere else.
Yeah. Now,
he's not impressed with Johnny and Shane.
Interesting tie-in we have here. In a promotion that was called Continental, which was run by the Fullers, Sid was there as Humongous. And he was part of a team with Shane Douglas. So this is before they both come to the NWA, and they had this huge storyline angle that Douglas and Sid as Humongous were actually relatives. And it was a pretty strong angle that they had and did some good business at that time. So I guess a year, maybe just over a year later, now they're both in WCW working a tag team against each other. Remember now, Jim Herd era, Jim Herd enough. Here's a young Shane Douglas. He's a good-looking kid. Who's that? Oh, that's Animal's brother. Can he wrestle? Kind of. All right, put him with Shane. We'll make him a tag team. Yeah. So, and then the Dynamic Dunes are born.
Found his footing in Japan, and
Yep.
I'll be
While you were gone, I made that argument already while you were gone. But yes,
about what Johnny Ace finding his footing in Japan.
yes, mm-hmm.
Yeah, he became a lot better overseas.
Right. As I said, he's one of the great guys that could get over in Japan, but not in America, like Kenny Omega.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Truth hurts.
But in the end, like I said, this match, this is already spoiler alert for worst match of the night because, again, chemistry wasn't there between these two teams. A lot of botched spots in this match. And in the
You wouldn't
end,
know what the ways the crowd was reacting to Sid, though.
yeah, and before you came back, I was saying the only notable thing about this match is the "We Want Sid" chants.
Every time Spidey's in the ring, they want Sid back in there.
Yep.
And then Sid gets in only for a cup of coffee, tags back out, and then the chants restart. So, but in the end, the Skyscrapers beat the Dynamic Dudes in 9 minutes 14 seconds. Following that, we get the match we've been teasing the past couple of minutes. The Tuxedo match. Paulie Dangerously versus Jim Cornette. I'm not going to judge it as a wrestling match because we all knew when you got managers in a match, it's not going to be spectacular. It's going to be there to be goofy, be funny, be entertaining.
This was a hot feud, though.
Yeah, this was huge.
This was a hot feud.
At that time, it was major feud. Yeah.
Yeah, this was pretty much the final chapter of the Cornette versus Paulie. Well, the Midnights versus Midnights portion was finished. That finished up at Chi-Town Rumble, but they still kept going. And this event was pretty much the blow-off to that feud. This match was part of it. It was a big feud. I mean, if you follow the booking that built up to this event, there was a lot of stuff that went on that led to this match, and of course the big fiasco, the War Games match. It was crazy, pretty violent. I mean, Cornette, the Spoons, the SWAT team would run in on the Midnights, and the Freebirds, they would bust open Jim Cornette. There'd be blood involved in this feud.
Yeah, the story goes that when this started, Dusty was still there, the booker, and he said to Jim Cornette at the Midnight Express, "Look, if you guys are cool with me bringing in the original Midnight Express because Dennis Condrey is part of the team and he screwed you guys over when he left town and didn't come back, if you want me to bring him in, I'll bring him in. It's up to you." They said, yes, we need a tag team to work with. So they brought in Randy Rose, Dennis Condrey, and Paul E. and started doing that angle. And like he said, it was the studio. Cornette's on the phone. As he's on the phone, the original Midnight hit the ring. They attack the Midnight. Jim gets the ring. There's Paul E. with the phone, cracks it over Jimmy's head. He's got his gimmick out, and slice. Nothing.
There's a
slice. And because it's cold in the studio, the blood wasn't flowing. So 3 good ones, and he starts gushing. And they show it on camera, and the thing's all over, and Dusty's like, "Damn, boy, I said you get a little juice on TBS, but not that much." So so they did the hot angle, but that was like the last time you saw blood on TBS until Dusty wanted to get fired. So, oh yeah, it was a hot way to start the angle, and they did the best they could with it as time went on, and this was the blow off to it.
And yeah, in this match, like I said, you're not gonna get a good match out of these two. You're gonna get mostly a fun, entertaining, goofy segment, essentially. Two powder spots.
Yeah.
2 powder spots, one that connected, one that got thrown back in Paulie's face. But in the end, also Paulie working on Cornette's knee after studying him and being in that scaffold.
The wrong knee.
Yeah.
He's working the wrong knee at the beginning. He's attacking the right knee.
Jimmy ripped into Paulie after that. You know how young Paulie was at this time? He was 23 years old.
Yeah.
Jimmy was only in the business 6 years at this point.
And Jimmy, he's like 27, 28 at this time.
Mm-hmm. You see Paulie attack the right knee of Jim Cornette, and you can see Jim leading in going, the other knee, and then Paul starts attacking the other one. It's like, so that's why I said in the statistics, at least 2 wrong leg calls happen in that match. As Paul is just all over the place. He can't focus.
See Cornette backstage. Hey, Paul, you know your right from your left? And he slaps. That's your right. That's your left.
Yes.
But in the end, Jim Cornette beat Paulie dangerously in the tuxedo match in 6 minutes, 22 seconds.
Cornette barely lost a thread of clothing, too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're getting nothing off of me, Paul. I'm not letting you have shit. You can throw the powder at me, but that's as much as I'm giving you, motherfucker.
And I will say, Cornette throws a hell of a punch.
Yeah, he does.
Those are like straight up Jerry Lawler style. They were great punches.
Yep. He had one of the great teachers. I mean...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now moving on to the next match, which is a Texas Tornado Tag Team match. The Varsity Club of Kevin Sullivan and Mike Rotunda versus the Steiner Brothers with Missy Hyatt. First things first, I gotta say, well, 2 things. First, Missy Hyatt, good lord, she was sexy back then.
Yes.
2,
she was everyone's centerfold. Every wrestling fan centerfold back then, dude.
Gorgeous.
And number 2...
This is also another blow-off match.
Yep.
And then number 2, because I have to get this in there, fuck the Steiner Brothers. You're wearing the jackets of my most hated football team ever. Fuck off. Muck Fishigan, that's what I'm going to say right now. And Scott Steiner might watch this video and might come back at me. Hey, get better at beating the Buckeyes in football, you jackasses.
It's all the work, kid. But,
This also is another blow-off match for a feud that went on for 6 months.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You noticing a trend with these matches, too? Some of these matches?
Yeah, some of them are blow-offs to feuds. Yeah.
This feud started back in, like, November or December of 88.
Mm-hmm.
And Scotty wasn't even in the promotion yet.
No. I mean, it started with...
Rick was teaming with Eddie Gilbert.
Yeah, because they had come in from the UWF. And it was originally Varsity Club was Sullivan and Rotunda. Steiner came in from the UWF. They assimilated Steiner into the group. And you remember, Mike Rotunda won the TV title and won the Florida title, and he gave the Florida title to Rick Steiner. So They both had titles at the time. And Rotunda was a hell of a TV champion. Had some great matches. Walt and I can go on and on about some of those. And then Steiner gets the babyface sympathy. They turn him babyface. He splits off. Sullivan now is teaming with Rotunda, bringing Scott Steiner, who had been working in the CWA in Memphis, to kind of get himself polished and ready to go. And then boom, we have the Steiners in there. And eventually to see what the Steiners would become in just a couple of years as a tag team. It would just revolutionize the division.
Yeah. And then, 8 years later, they would have arguably the best tag team feud in the history of WCW against the Outsiders. So there you go.
Very cool. Yeah.
But yeah, this match...
They were considered the best tag team in the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this match, while very short, they got their shit in, and it was a pretty entertaining, pretty good Texas Tornado match. I wish wrestling in general...
This is a Kevin Sullivan Florida Championship Wrestling style brawl.
Yeah.
You would see these kind of fights down in Florida Championship Wrestling back when Sullivan was out there. But it would be like back when Sullivan was with the Purple Haze, and they'd be going up against Brian Blair and Mike Graham. Those kind of matches.
Yep.
But yeah, I was going to make the point. Since this was a tornado tag match, I almost wish wrestling would do these matches more often today, because they're fun if you get the right teams involved. They can be a lot of fun to watch. And a lot of fun to play if you play WWE games and they have the tornado tags.
The problem nowadays is you have to have credibility on your referees for a match like this to really get over, because back in this time, it was strict adherence to the tag team rules. If you have just guys bouncing in and out of the ring and ignoring the 5 count and doing all that stuff, takes credibility away from the referees. What made this work is the fact that both teams can be at the ring at the same time. Refs don't have to worry about that. So the crowd's like, yes, don't have to worry about the referee. He should sit there and count 3 or whatever. Nowadays, refs don't have credibility, and guys just go in and out of the ring, girls too, just go in and out all they want, so it doesn't get over, now all 4 can be in the ring at the same time. Oh, again, this week, you're just making it official? Big deal. So,
But in the end, Steiner Brothers beat the Varsity Club in 4 minutes, 22 seconds, the shortest match on the card. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much that's pretty much the first half of the show. First half, very mixed bag. Like, you had a mediocre 2-ring battle royal, a good match between Pillman and Irwin, bad tag team match, entertaining tuxedo match, and a pretty good brawl. Now we're getting into the point of the show where that makes this show arguably the best in WCW history. The second half. Everything from this moment on is fantastic. Next up, a one-on-one match for the NWA World Television Championship. Champion Sting with Eddie Gilbert in this corner. You guys will have to fill me in on that. Versus the Great Muta with Gary Hart.
Eddie Gilbert.
So fill me in on why Gilbert was with Sting, because it's
back in the UWF. Eddie Gilbert had his own crew, Hot Stuff Incorporated, and Sting was a part of the UWF too. He had been in the tag team, the Blade Runners, with Rock, the Ultimate Warrior, and so there was the history between the two of them. And Gilbert was kind of fresh in the company at this point. He was also part of the booking committee. Eventually, Ric Flair would fire him because, Eddie was given a finish to do in Memphis, Tennessee one night. Eddie changed the finish. Flair found out, got pissed off, fired him off the committee. So that's how it works. But because Sting and Eddie had that history together in UWF, they were there to they were put together a little bit. It was more, Eddie's just a glorified manager at this point. He's a small guy, so he doesn't have a lot to do, and he's there to offset Gary Hart. Eddie is also, by the way, with Missy Hyatt at this time. They're married. So how the hell Eddie got Missy, we'll never know. But
Missy was getting over, so it's kind of like, well, if I'm going to be around, my husband's got to stick around. But another reason why Eddie is in Sting's corner is, prior to this, Muta and Eddie was the first feud that they put Muta in. They brought him in. They put him in there with Eddie, and the first thing he did was he misted Tommy Gilbert, Eddie's brother, and then he misted. Then he went against Doug Gilbert at Wrestle War, and he misted him too. So that developed a little bit of a vendetta between Eddie Gilbert and the Great Muta. So that also brings on his involvement with this match. Going to his old hot commodities or Hot Stuff Incorporated partner.
That's a good point. Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, that was Muta's testing. Thanks, Will. I forgot about that. Also, he did spew the mist in Missy's face, I believe.
After the show. It was a month after the show. They had a no DQ match, and Eddie puts Missy on the apron, and Gary comes over and starts talking shit to Eddie, and that allows Muta to... It was fucking wild, too. Just gets her right in the... Spraying Missy in the face.
Oh boy, the amount of innuendos that created.
That's a horse of a different color.
Holy hell. But anyways, so thinking about it, like, this was when Sting was a little bit over a year into actually being a top player in the company, back when it was Jim Crockett Promotions the year prior.
He was working as well. He was getting there.
He was getting there to proper main event status that he would get a year later. That episode will be coming in 2 weeks. But yeah, it's like thinking back, like how Great Muta was and such, and his character and everything he's done. And then you look at Sting. You would have thought this would have been a dream match in like the early 90s. Well, we got it here in 1989. And holy crap, it was short. It was a relatively short match, but man, was a hell of an under 9 minute match. These two tore the house down for under 9 minutes. Just imagine though if just imagine if this match had happened again a couple years later for the world title. And it was like a 15-minute match. They probably could have put on one of the greatest matches of all time.
They had a match 2 years later in Japan at the Tokyo Dome Super Show.
Yes.
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot because I remember like WCW New Japan had a deal together for a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this was Kaiji Muto was pulled from New Japan Pro Wrestling, and this was his learning excursion, and he went under the tutelage of Gary Hart, because Gary Hart, really, saw something in him, and
We started.
and everyone was so amazed at what Muto was doing, and like I said, the scary thing is he hadn't even peaked yet, and he was doing some crazy wild shit at this point. He wasn't even, his best years were still a couple of years ahead of him.
Yeah, he had started in Florida as Black Ninja, and
and world class.
And world class, yeah. So Gary found him, took a liking to him, and Gary had always been the guy who managed those mysterious Asian, Japanese freaks and oddities and things like that. Kabuki, Dragon and all that stuff, the Dragon Master, and Magic Dragon, excuse me. And so it just fed right into his gimmick. And now he's got a young kid that can do so much more. He's young. He's athletic. He has so much ability. Now he can really go to work with him. And Sting and Muta were just made to work against each other. Just perfect matchup right there. So,
yeah. So in the end, and of course we get the finish. I believe this is the Dusty finish you brought up.
yes, sir.
So the match ends with a similar finish to what would happen 7 years later at Beware of Dog in Your House with Shawn and Bulldog. The back suplex spot where both men's shoulders are down, but they both get their shoulder up at the same time at the end. Referees confused, don't know what really happened. And at first they announced Sting retained, then Muta and Gary Hart run out with the title. We find out later in the night that nobody won and the title was suspended afterwards.
Yep.
So while not the best finish to do, well, I mean, I get why they did. You couldn't have Sting lose because he's the champion and they're building him up. You can't have Muta lose because he's on the rise. So I get why they did it, but man.
Yeah, and I give them credit, too, for not going the easy way. From this point on, there's plenty of different places where you could say, except for the War Games match, which we'll get to, you could have done a DQ finish with something, with one match or another. They do it, of course, but it makes sense the next match. They could have done a DQ finish here and had relatively the same results. Thankfully, they don't. Thankfully, they do the double pin, don't make him do the job spot. But it does... it helps further the story instead of just being a cop-out just to make sure somebody doesn't lose the title.
And on top of that, with what happens later in the night, then it all wraps up perfectly.
This match does get a very rigorous bullshit chant from the crowd.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So in the end, no winner in 8 minutes, 40 seconds. Mm-hmm. Moving on to the next match... One-on-one for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. Champion Lex Luger versus challenger Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Originally... Freeze. Oh, yeah, the...
Freeze. It stopped.
Luger's trying to pedestal with his feet.
Yep.
That was pretty funny.
Yes.
Now, originally this was meant to be a no DQ match, but in Luger's interview prior to coming out saying, no, there should be DQs and countouts. I want to beat out Steamboat in a proper match. None of this stipulation stuff. So then after the entrances...
And that's the illogical thing about that is why didn't the NWA say, fuck you, you don't wrestle the match we give you, you surrender your title now. I'm like, why are they bowing down to Luger? He's the U.S. champion, not Ric Flair.
Right. I mean, you could say it's feeding it's playing up his ego that he thinks he can, run the show and he can tell the NWA what to do and what not to do. Could say that, but yeah, nowadays you wouldn't see this. You would probably depending on what company, you wouldn't see this. But
and this, I point out, and Scott knows this is actually one of my favorite eras of Lex Luger. I mean, probably my only favorite era of Lex Luger because he was red hot back at this time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Freshly turned heel, and the crowd he was getting was insane, and the promos he was cutting were solid.
Yep. He had been...
What the fuck happened after this?
He'd been the heel with the Horsemen, and he had the rub from them. turned babyface, left the Horsemen after the Bunkhouse Stampede deal and all that stuff, became a top contender. Of course, had the infamous team with Barry Windham. Windham turned on him. Windham joined the Horsemen, got a lot of sympathy on Lex, and he had the run with Flair, never got the title, and then he turns heel just to become an ego dick, and the whole crowd was like, we fucking backed you for a year, and now all of a sudden you're a dick again? Fuck you. So it worked. It got the heat they wanted for him. So
Yeah, and it was going great for him, and then Sting got hurt, and they had nobody else to put up against Flair, so they had to turn Sting face. Well, they were going to put Muta in there, but Muta left for New Japan, and so they had to turn Luger face again, and that was it.
Yep.
AKA a gigantic clusterfuck.
It was supposed to be Muta. We're going way ahead. That was supposed to be Muta. They wanted Muta to. That was the thing. After Sting got hurt at that Clash of Champions, I know I'm jumping way ahead. After Sting got hurt at Clash of Champions, they saw the reception Muta got in that match, that 6-man tag.
Yep.
The crowd was instantly fucking
He became
behind
the
him.
babyface of that match, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, wait a minute, we might have our new challenger. But then Gary Hart talked Muta into basically telling Jim Hart, fuck you, I'm going to New Japan, give me more money.
Right.
And that's where they had to go back to Lex.
But anyways, to this match between Luger and Steamboat. Again, another relatively short match, a little over 10 minutes, but another amazing match on the card. And these two beat the hell out of each other in this match. But then we get to the finish. Oh.
Which is weird, because this shit never happened in a Ricky Steamboat match.
No.
Yeah.
This never happened. Yep.
Yeah, so watching this finish back, it was like, Steamboat's one of the top 5 all-time babyfaces in the business, never uses dirty tactics, but yet in this match, he gets himself disqualified for hitting Luger with a chair. But the crowd loved it, because they're like, oh yeah, Steamboat, you are a badass. And then just wailed on Luger. And
he was swinging for the fences with that chair, too.
You notice he never went for the head. You know, he went to the stomach, he went to the back. He didn't do anything stupid with it. And
it was
Luger's
very safe, but he made it look aggressive.
Exactly, and something they don't do anymore. You know, who's the Marks boys? But yeah, so I mean, you had the straight up technical match, and Steamboat has said many times, he's like, you know, he'd be doing an interview, and he'd look for a piece of furniture like a lamp. He said, "You see this lamp here? I can move this lamp easier than I can Lex Luger." He was just would not move. Because Luger was so freaking muscle bound, and Steamboat was not used to working with guys that size, really. There was, you know, he had worked, Don Morocco was not like the Adonis he once was when he was working with the WWF. Savage is the same size as Steamboat. Ric Flair, about the same size as Steamboat. Luger towers over and is way more jacked. So for Steamboat to work with a guy of that stature, that was kind of new. So you have to see the story of like, Luger's going to be the chicken shit champion. No, there cannot be a no disqualification because I want to be able to get the DQ to keep my title. You know, that whole thing. And then when he brings the chair in, Steamboat, who's top babyface of all time, is like, I've had enough of this shit. Bang, bang, bang. And just starts going to town on Luger. And like you said, the crowd loves it because the Flair Steamboat angle is done at this point. What's left for Ricky to do? And he wouldn't be here very much longer. He would head back to work for Vince about a year or so after this. So.
Yeah. This I think he left the promotion shortly after this match.
Yeah, because he wanted to be home with the kid, and then he got the call from Vince. Hey, pal, want to be a dragon? For real? Yeah, be a dragon.
But one other thing I forgot to mention with Steamboat's entrance, with his wife and his little son, Little Richie. Just seeing Little Richie, it really makes me pain inside how much it sucked for Richie to have to retire so damn soon. Because I remembered I watched, a couple years after it happened, I watched his matches in the early days of modern NXT against Cassius Ohno. FCW. I thought Richie could have been something special. Could be a top champion today if he was healthy and still going. But back injury killed his career at such a young age, and it sucks.
I think he's a lawyer now.
Yes. At least he's got. At least he's doing something now. But man, just imagine.
Didn't he get into racing for some time?
Yeah,
like
he used to race like nationals in Charlotte, North Carolina, at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Well, that was the funny thing because because Ricky always said that Richie. This is like going back 20 years ago. Richie had no interest in getting involved in the business.
Not at that time, and then he was just
Not
like,
at that time.
"Oh, let's give it a try." And man,
He picked up on it fairly quick, and like I said, if he hadn't gotten injured and had to retire, I would argue he could be world champion in WWE right now.
Yeah.
I would make the argument he could be world or universal champion, feuding with the likes of Rollins and Brock if he didn't get hurt.
quite possibly, yeah.
So it's similar to Magnum TA, that what could have been in the business kind of situation.
Very good analogy, yeah. Very good analogy.
Because,
Yeah,
I mean, you
solid.
look back at Magnum TA's career, even though he was way before my time, but understanding the story, top mid-card star and was on his way to becoming the top babyface in Crockett until the accident.
Yep. And he had a career of, I think, 4 years. That's why I threw up the 4 there. Magnum, so.
Yeah. But in the end, with Luger and Steamboat, Luger beats Steamboat by disqualification in 10 minutes, 26 seconds. So, noticing something, all the matches so far on the show have been like 10.5 minutes or shorter. Yep. So, apart from like the interviews in between, the matches are fairly easy to watch through, especially for people who aren't into like super long matches. So, yeah, we've reached all the short matches on the card. 2 matches to go. It's the big ones. First up, the War Games. And I'm a huge fan of War Games match, and I will go ahead and say it. Favorite War Games match of all time, Wrestle War 92. Sting Squadron and the Dangerous Alliance.
Dangerous Alliance.
That's a great one.
Yep.
But
this one here, the thing about this one here is it's a culmination of a bunch of blow-offs. Because all the way building up to this War Games matches, you had the Freebirds running in on the Midnights. And you had the Samoan SWAT team running in on the Road Warriors. And then you got the Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team running in on the Road Warriors in a cage match and locking them up. And then you got Jim Cornette convincing Dr. Death Steve Williams to leave the Varsity Club and join up with them to help them in the fight against the Freebirds. And just a whole... This is a very ECW style book setup for this one, because it just takes a whole bunch of different feuds, about 3 different feuds, and puts them all together in one War Games.
Yep. And in this War Games match, you have the Fabulous Freebirds of Michael Hayes, Jimmy Garvin, and Terry Gordy, and the Samoan SWAT team, Fatu and Samu, versus the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane, and Dr. Death Steve Williams. And, of course, you have Paulie Dangerously on the side with the Samoans and the Freebirds. And you got Paul Ellering and Jim Cornette on the other side. So, a lot of star power for a tag team, roughly, scene in the company. And you get this match, and while not the greatest War Games match of all time, I would say top 6. This was
It's pretty damn
really
good,
damn good. A great War Games match.
Yeah. There's really no such thing as a bad War Games match. If there is, there's 1 or 2 of them, and it wasn't one of these. It wasn't this one.
Go ahead.
1995 and 1998, fuck those matches, up the asshole.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
93 would be down there in that category a little bit too, but...
Dusty and Dustin and the Nasties?
No, it was the Shockmaster.
Oh, the Shockmaster one. Yes, okay. Yeah. That wasn't that bad. I mean, the people talk about more of the Shockmaster's debut than they do the actual War Games match. I don't remember it being that terrible, though. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this War Games match definitely top 6, top 5 even, I could even say. Of the ones that I've known and seen, yeah, this was a brutal affair. No blood, but still... No. But still a
pretty
fun
violent match, though.
But it was brutal, definitely brutal. And I will say this too, like, Hawk and Animal... I think Hawk and Animal, to me, when it comes to them as a team, I feel Like, people always put them in that upper echelon of, like, being, like, the best brawling team, but people, I feel, underestimate their actual athleticism, because they were flying in this match. Jumping between rings, over the ropes, they were going insane in this match.
Yeah.
So
Animal's got a really good drop kick. A lot of people never noticed that, but Animal's got a good drop kick.
Great drop kick.
Yeah.
And you see Animal like 5 times trying to set up the spot where he's going to jump the ring. And like right at the beginning, he goes to send, I think, one of the Samoans over the other ring. Terry gets right in his way, has to clothesline him. Terry gets up, clothesline him again, gets up, clothesline him again, goes over, grabs the Samoan, throws him the other ring, then hits a big running, then dives over and gets like so much to get to that spot. But never once looks like he's screaming, yelling, hollering, or talking bad about anybody.
Backstage, I bet. He probably lost his cool backstage.
Well, probably backstage,
Yeah.
he had a, and he probably did, and he was fine. But I do have a fun story around this time, if I may. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is around the time where the NWA, WCW was trying to infiltrate the Northeast, and the shows they did there were few and far between. They had far more failures than they had successes, but one in particular was in Boston, Massachusetts. So we have the Freebirds working with the Midnight Express. They were kind of going around the horn on the house show circuit and stuff. Well, Jimmy Garvin was on vitamins. Let's just call them that. And with the vitamins comes attitude. And Jimmy is progressively getting stiffer and more of an attitude. Because he's like 5'10", 225, but he's trying to be this badass.
He's starting to get a little more jacked up too, if you notice.
Jacked up, getting ahead, and basically he became a Freebird because the original Freebirds, Buddy, Michael, and Terry, ruined their house so much that they had to crash at Jimmy's place so much they felt bad and made him a freaking Freebird. So eventually we're having this round the horn situation, Midnight Freebirds. And Jimmy's getting worse and worse. He pops Cornette one night. Okay, fine. He's the babyface manager, so he takes the shot. He goes down. He gets back up because he's got a couple of spots to do. After the match is over, Garvin is yelling at Cornette, "What the fuck you doing not selling my stuff out there?" So, what? You hit me, I went down. Yeah, we didn't stay down. He's like, because he was on the shit. So he's acting like a freaking dick. Finally, we come to Boston. 6-man tag. All 3 Freebirds against the Midnight and Dr. Death. The match
Garvin picks the wrong guy to fuck with.
Oh, yes. Match falls into chaos. Guys fighting everywhere. It ends up with Jimmy Garvin in the ring with Dr. Death. And Dr. Death has a chair. It's not a steel chair. It's a wood chair. It's one of the chairs you get from the crowd. Okay, it's got those long pieces of wood that you sit on and the hardwood. And 5'10", 225-pound Jimmy Garvin will not back down from Dr. Death, even with a chair. So Doc has the chair ready to go, and he's like giving Garvin plenty of time to scatter, do whatever he's got to do, and Jimmy won't move. And Doc says, "Screw it." Boom! Bangs him over the head, and Jimmy goes, "Fuck!" And Doc goes, "Fuck with me!" Boom! Fuck! Fuck with me! Boom! Fuck with me!
And now Garvin's bleeding everywhere.
Pieces of the chair are flying everywhere. Yes. Match ends. They all go in the back.
Garvin's all cut up.
Garvin's cut up. I mean, everyone's screaming and yelling at each other. Cornette doesn't know what to fucking do. And he's looking at the Freebirds and the Midnight arguing. And now he's thinking, oh, shit. Terry, Doc, what are they going to do? Because they're friends. They're partners. What's going to happen? Is it going to be a big brawl? And they're screaming and hollering in the freaking locker room, and everyone's going crazy. And finally, Bobby Eaton, who never says anything, who never yells and screams or raises his voice, goes, "God damn, we're not fucking here just to get you guys over." And that, like, broke the tension. And everything stopped. Doc and Terry were like, "Oh, fuck this." They went to the other locker room. Jimmy went off. He had bone spurs in his elbows. He had all kinds of splinters. He had a concussion. He had to go home for a few weeks. Just because of the shit he was on, he wouldn't back down from Dr. Death with a chair.
Oh, God.
That's stupid.
That's stupid.
That's fucking dumb.
Now that guy is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yep. I can see Michael talking to Jimmy. Hey, yo, Jimmy Jam, you can't be doing that stuff, man. You know, if Dr. Death's coming into the ring with a chair, you gotta get out of there, man.
Get the hell out of there.
You gotta get out of there.
What's wrong, Terry?
Fuck with me. Fuck with me. Is there footage of this match anywhere?
No,
Nope,
it's a house
it was a house show.
Oh, it was
It's
a house show.
You just have Jim Cornette's description, which is pretty much what I said. So
The one thing, going back to the War Games match, the one thing also that stood out for me was Hayes knew when the camera was on him, and when it was, he played it to the T.
yes,
First things first, he's fucking with with a group of fans in the corner, right adjacent to him. He's just giving them a ton of shit, and they're all getting all rabid on him. And he looks to one of them and he goes, "Shut your stinking mouth before I jam my foot down your throat, you Baltimore puke."
Yeah.
And then when they're instructing Rikishi or Fatu to get in there, telling him, "Eat, kill, eat." That's another thing that's great about this. The promo leading up to this match.
Yeah.
The Freemen are talking and cutting their shit. The fucking Samoans are eating each other.
Yeah. It's so weird.
They were fighting, like, climbing all over each other and gnawing at each other's ears.
Oh, and one more funny connection. Walter, where did the Samoan SWAT team come from right before they came to WCW?
World class.
Who were they with?
Buddy Roberts.
The other member of the Freebirds. So they went from being
Buddy
managed from with one Freebird to go team up with the other Freebirds.
Yep, there was a total Freebird connection. Well, that was the thing, though. Before Michael, that was the other thing. Before, when Michael returned to the NWA, him and Steve Cox were feuding with the Samoan SWAT team.
Yes, that's true.
Yep,
Steve
with
Dewitt
Buddy and
Cox, man.
Big Kahuna, Buddy Robert.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We're going way back on this
Way
one.
back.
This is. I think Levi's parents were little kids when this happened.
That was 88. That was only a year prior to this.
88. Well, yeah, about a year or two before. Yeah.
So my parents
right
would have
Michael
been
went back.
mid-20s.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
I was 13.
But in the end, Road Warriors, Midnight Express, and Dr. Death win War Games in 22 minutes, 18 seconds.
Neckbreaker. Hanging neck.
And not a bloody
Yeah,
finish,
with
but
the
still
hangman,
violent.
with the hangman submission, yeah.
Oh! How? When do you ever see that?
Nobody uses that one
that
anymore. No one uses that. Why not? It's a great finish.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you ever notice that they did it to Jimmy Jam? Probably because Jimmy Jam pissed Hawk off.
Yes.
That's another guy you don't fuck with was Mike Hegstrand.
That's
You
right.
don't fuck with Road Warrior Hawk.
Mm-mm.
But if I may add one little comment about the actual War Games match itself, it's like, as fun as those matches were, part of me wishes they should have raised the cage up by about, like, 7 feet, just because... Watch back the 1991 War Games match. The fucking bumps Pillman took. Or hell, even the first one with JJ getting his shoulder fucked from a botched Doomsday device, that should have been reason enough to been like, okay, we don't want anything like this happening again. We should raise the cage up a little bit to make sure that don't happen again. They never learned their lesson after that.
They did it so Doc could do his gorilla press spot on Gordy.
Which those were cool. And Sting did that same spot in the 92 War Games as well.
Right.
So
yeah, so it's a cool thing to get get the shine on the babyface and everything. But yeah, they should have learned, move that thing up just a couple of inches. You would have been a lot better.
Well, they have it now. There isn't even a roof on it.
Yeah, there's not even a roof on the ones WWE does. And then the AEW one that they're supposed to do sometime later in the year, that's going to have a roof. So at least I will say what you will about AEW, but at least with the Guts and Glory match, they are doing traditional War Games with the roof and submission or surrender.
Right.
I don't know why
WWE,
they called it off.
do
They could
it.
have done it. Pandemic or no pandemic.
Yeah, they definitely could have done that. If they're going to do a freaking Stadium Stampede thing, There's no reason why they can't do. What the hell they call it? Blood and guts or something like that.
Blood
Yeah.
and guts.
Blood and guts.
They want to save it for fans. They probably just want to save it for fans.
Just call it the
Which-
match beyond.
which is
WWE
fair,
doesn't do
but,
that. Just call it the match
Yeah.
beyond. WWE doesn't do that. They just call it War Games. Just call it the match beyond.
But now it's main event time. And the one word to describe it all,
Jackass.
Jackass!
it is the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. It is the NWA World Title match, Ric Flair defending against Terry Funk.
I think this is the best shape Funk has ever been in. He looks in great shape in this match. For that
Yeah, he
first
does.
week of that time, is it slim? You can keep up with Flair. If you can keep up with Flair, that's saying something. You know, the
Yeah.
Funks are no slouches. They can hang with the best of them. He's in great shape in this match.
Yeah. And also need to mention the promo that Flair cut beforehand. Very different from what you would see Flair doing with the over-the-top stuff. He's being more serious because he's realizing he's about to go into a match against a fucking psychopath who nearly tried to paralyze him with a pile driver through a table. And they play that up the whole match. Like, if he hits the pile driver, it's over, and he's going to work on the neck, and the whole match. Great psychology here for heel babyface formula. Funk constantly going on the neck, trying to wrench it up and break it, snap it, whatever you got to do to incapacitate Flair. But yeah, overall with this match, oh man, this was an awesome match. Maybe not as good as the I Quit match they would have. What was it, Clash of the Champions?
New York Knockout.
Not as good as the I Quit match, but it's still a phenomenal.
Close
match
enough.
between these two.
Oh, yeah.
Still close.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
this was a
color.
violent brawl. This was still very ECW.
Yeah,
type
you
of,
had color in this match with the branding iron. First, Flair has the figure 4 on Funk. Funk grabs his branding iron, bashes Flair right in the face, and then in typical Flair fashion, blade, and then you get blood. And then it would backfire on Funk as Funk would get hit in the head with the branding iron later, then into the ring post, and then they're both bleeding. So, yeah, these two just tried to kill each other, pile drive each other, do whatever they had to do to get one up over the other. And the finish, which perfectly set up the I Quit match, a fluky finish with a roll up after the toe hold,
Spinning toe hold.
and the spinning toe hold, and then into a schoolboy.
Into a figure 4, into a roll up, into a reversal. That was the pin.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Ric Flair retains the NWA World Championship, but then after the match, Funk or Great Muta comes out, misses Flair right in the face, and then Muta and Funk beat down Flair, and then Sting comes out, and it's 2-on-2, Flair and Sting against Muta and Funk, just beating the hell out of each other for about a good 5 minutes.
Now here's the thing: the post-match segment, if you rented the official VHS copy of this, it cuts off shortly after Flair and Muta first retreat. When they're going, that's when it cuts off. If that was your first time seeing that, you had no idea about the continuous brawl that carried on shortly after.
Yeah, and you got Jim Ross and Bob up there, and they're what the hell's going on, and everything's happening all around them. They're trying to get out of the way, just total chaos. And again, that was another little bargaining chip for Flair to say, "See what I did with business right there? This is why you need to give me the book. I can help run this company."
Yep. And I had no idea about that post brawl until I saw the WWE Network, because the only thing the first time I saw this pay-per-view was the VHS copy. So I had no idea about it ended. The VHS cuts off with Sting hitting the ring and Flair and Funk retreating, and that's it.
That's it right there.
And it goes right.
Yeah, this was carried on pay-per-view, but not very extensively. I remember it was not available in my area. Around 8. This is July '89. We're right after WrestleMania 5, which was carried, but this was not. So it was rare to get a WCW pay-per-view on your cable system at that point. It would take a couple years.
We were able to watch NWA because we got TBS around.
Right.
So the way to follow up on what happened at these pay-per-views is to watch WCW.
Yeah, and you would see clips of this pay-per-view in like the lead-up clips on the Clash of Champions or the Saturday Night Show. It would show like little bits and pieces from that, and I always wondered like, what show is this? When it'd be years later, I could watch it on cassette, and now on the network. So,
yeah. So overall, Great American Bash '89, mixed bag first half, classic second half, and I think when you balance it all out, a great show overall for WCW. And I see a lot of people put this as maybe the best show in the history of the company. You could make that argument. I would say Super Brawl 3 was a little bit better in my opinion, because I really, really liked that show. But I wouldn't argue against people saying Bash '89 being the best show in the history of the company from late '88 to 2001.
Right. Yeah.
So overall, if I were to... Yeah. So overall, if I were to grade the show, I would give the show an A, probably. Because all four of those final four matches, top to bottom, from the second half, was awesome. Now on to best match and worst match. Start with the easy part. Worst match goes to Skyscrapers versus Dynamic Dudes.
I agree with that.
Best match, this is so hard. Because those last four matches, you can make a case for.
Are really good. Yeah.
I guess for me, I'm going to go with Flair and Funk, because of the story, the psychology, and what leads up to a future show on Clash with the I Quit match. It was awesome. Close second, I'd go with Sting and Muta. Close second.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really back and forth too, because those are the two matches that stand out to me. So probably different days I'll give you different answers. So I'm gonna do a cheap thing. Tie. I'll put him at a tie.
All right, and then Walt.
Worst match, that's unanimous, the tag match. Dynamic Dudes versus the Skyscrapers. Best match, and then, again, it's those final four matches that really make it hard for you. I will have to go with Flair and Funk. And just a good, violent brawl, a precursor to the ECW, which it is. It reminded me a lot of an ECW brawl, just without including the crazy overbooked finish, the post-match stuff.
Yep.
And it also led to the Thunderdome tag match, which sometime down the road we'll talk about Halloween Havoc eventually. Yeah, just a good, violent brawl. Probably one of my. I'm going to be honest with you. Probably the Flair and Funk feud is probably my favorite Ric Flair program, because
I agree with that.
Yeah, it truly puts Rick, because Ric Flair was really hard to cheer all these years, and Terry Funk did enough to get the fans behind him completely.
With
Flair was always over.
Jackass.
Pretty much. Terry Funk, such a violent, vile heel. I loved it.
And now I'm thinking about it. Both feuds, the Steamboat Flair feud and the Flair Funk feud, kind of end the same way, with a little bit of a change, in personalities. But because Flair Steamboat, that series is what defines wrestling, pro wrestling, in-ring, competitive, technicality, all that crazy stuff that we all love. Flair and Funk has that extra bit of grit, hardcore, that the bunkhouse Southern Texas style from Funk getting in there, and plus Funk can cut those crazy ass promos, as we've demonstrated, Jackass, and all that stuff. So it just adds to it. And like you said, Levi, Flair is now babyface Flair. So his promo demeanor is much more subdued. It's not about the women and the long cars and the planes and all that money. It's about trying to be a serious champion and defend the title that he is proud to hold. And he's going to be very calm about it, very demure. I am concentrated on Terry Funk in that ring tonight. Thank you, Gordon. That kind of thing. So,
but then again, you could say Ric Flair throughout his whole career even when he was a heel, he always seemed to cut like babyface style promos, which was really interesting for a heel to do.
Yeah, it was just the different way of doing it.
And the different tamper.
Yes.
But you notice, though, after the Funk feud ended, Flair's the arrogant, cocky jet wheeling, kiss Steele, and Ric Flair that we know.
Right.
He brings Arn Anderson back and Ole Anderson back and makes Sting a horseman.
The Refell's a horseman with Sting, and then they're going to go back to Sting and Flair, and Sting gets hurt, and because Flair was going to put the title on Sting. That was his
before
plan.
all that, we slowly started seeing Ric Flair transition back to the arrogant Ric Flair.
Yep. So, and that led to Sting and Flair and everything else that came after that, which we'll get to in another episode.
Oh, yes.
And with that said, that does it for episode 6 as far as the rest of the schedule, in case you guys forgot. Next week, we're returning back up north to the WWF. We're doing King of the Ring 2001. Unexpected tournament winner, Kurt Angle wrestling 3 matches, hell of a triple threat, and the beginnings of arguably one of the worst angles in the history of the business. So much. We'll get to that next week. And then after that, we're going to go a year from this show, Bash 90. And July, we'll have to figure that out. But anyways, before we go, time to plug our stuff. You can subscribe to me, ThrashManiac99. Keep going on the road with me and keep building up me subs. Hopefully I can get to 4,000 next year. That would be badass, but I'm not holding my breath. But you can follow me on Twitter at ThrashManiac99 and Twitch at ThrashManiac99. If you want to add me on Snapchat if you're feeling weird, at ThrashManiacYT. Scott?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Mr. Scott Reacts, where I do reaction videos. Please go there and subscribe. Please also make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, although I think notifications are kind of fucked up right now, so if they don't work, just keep your eyes on our site here. We'd really appreciate that. And, of course, so you can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Mr. Scott Reacts. And you find me and my buddy Walt here as part of the Necrocasticon podcast, where we talk horror and heavy metal. We come out to you every Monday on the Project Entertainment Network. Walter!
You can find me on the Twitter at YourWaltBall. You can find me on Instagram at smoking_Walt_Ball.
And until next week, I see skies of blue, clouds of white. But anyways, hold high, and we'll see you next week.